Welcome, everyone, to our Wednesday night service. We've got Joey here this evening with us and Pastor Phil. We want to thank you guys for watching, and feel free to comment and like and share this video as well.
Right. So, Wednesday nights, we started a new series, and we've been on it now for a little bit, on marriage. And so what we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about marriage from the perspective of a dude. And so, dudes, from the perspective of dudes. So but let me give you a quick promo before we go any farther. So also next Wednesday, we're gonna air the marriage from the perspective of women. We just had the added benefit and bonus of getting to watch it. And I'm telling you, it is must-see TV. You don't want to miss next Wednesday.
It's prime time.
It's prime time. I'm telling you, there'd be networks that would pay for this. It was funny. It was just really good. So I want to tell you that next Wednesday, make sure you dot that and put that in your notes, whatever, reminders, all that kind of stuff. You'll want to see next week's airing of marriage from a woman's perspective.
Sure. I'm going to watch it again.
Absolutely, I am as well. So I've been thinking about this as we were getting ready, knowing that we were going to do the man's perspective of marriage. And so here's Jason. Jason has been, you've been with me now for, 14 years, something like that. We've known each other almost from the minute we knew each other. We bonded and built a great relationship. And so, Max was like, just tiny. He was a baby, And so your kids have grown up, and we've grown up with your family. Your family's grown up being around us. And then, of course, my daughter now is on the verge of getting married to this guy. And so we are welcoming Joey into our family, and that's going to take place soon in the near future. And so they did an airing, I guess it was last week, talking about the perspective of marriage from, somebody that's getting ready to get married. So I've been thinking about this a little bit from a man's perspective, and I've come to one conclusion. I know how, by 100% chance, how marriages can always succeed. 100%. Never miss. There's three things that will guarantee a marriage will always succeed. And really, I'll be honest with you, I've talked to my kids about this kind of stuff before. I've told them, I said, and some of this is a little funny, but there's some truth to it too. So, number one, and always the number one issue, is if you're looking for a mate, getting ready to get married, you want to know, first of all, one thing, you want to know that they are a Jesus lover. When you know that you got a Jesus lover, both of you need to be Jesus lovers, right? Mm-hmm. And then I take it a step farther, and I tell them that political perspectives matter, because if you get one person that sees the world through the lens of a liberal-minded person and another through the lens of a conservative-minded person, then you're going to struggle with some things. Now, there's truth to that, okay? And so, of course, I've raised my daughters. They're generally speaking conservative views. Not to say that we're crazy on one way or the other, but we're pretty conservative viewpoints of people. So I believe that, I believe that's the right way to see the world. And then the thirdly is just about as important as that is your favorite NFL football team. And so I've raised my kids to love Jesus, be conservatives, and love the Dallas Cowboys.
Is it Joey?
Well, that's exactly what I was trying to get to, is Joey, there's no pressure or anything, but we're like the world is watching.
So and
so are you a Jesus lover?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm not going to put you on the spot on the conservative. I think you probably see the world similarly. And but what about your favorite NFL team?
I'm what you call a very passive fan. So, I mean, when we lived in Oregon, it's like 49ers.
What?
And I've kind of just stuck with them. But, yeah.
Dave Wells.
Yeah, so me and Dave kind of,
So, well, you have a 66% chance of making it. So,
yeah.
Two-thirds, you have two-thirds of the...
That's a D, that's passing.
Deal, so that's barely passes, Joe.
I'll take it.
No, but just having some fun here. It's the point really is this. From a guy's perspective, when me and Debbie got married, we talked about everything. We talked about, I mean, she knew what my viewpoints were. She knew my thoughts. You know, at the time I wasn't saved, but she knew that I was not like that. But then she was going to church and had a relationship with God. And at the time I really didn't. But we talked about all of that. Even though I wasn't living it, we did talk about it. And I knew that at some point that I needed to get to that place. And we talked about political viewpoints, because, you know, I knew that was going to be important. And then I did force my favorite team upon her. And, you know, through the years, she has adapted and embraced the experience of being a Dallas Cowboy fan.
That's what it's all about.
Largely. Anyway, and I know what your viewpoints are on the NFL, too.
What I've learned about the Dallas Cowboys is just what I've seen on King of the Hill. So that's all I can say about that. So go team. I'll root for whoever. I'm at somebody's house and they have a favorite team. I'm like, go for it. Do it.
As long as the food's good.
Yes.
Pizza, wings, all the standards.
Right, absolutely.
Well, with all that said, let's get into some thoughts here tonight that are definitely important when it comes to seeing a marriage through the lens of a guy, a dude. So in Genesis chapter 1, let's look at this real quick. Verse 26, God is talking about, you know, making man, creating man here. He says, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let him have dominion. And so he goes through all that, and then it says that he created man in his own image. In the image he created God, he, him, male and female created he, him. So God shows us here that the first creation, as far as a human being was concerned, was man. Now, I've tried to teach my wife this through the years. I've like, you know, when we got married, it was like, man, I knew just enough to be dangerous, biblically speaking. You don't know
just enough to get into trouble.
Yeah, or just enough to think that I knew something. And in reality, I might know a little truth, but a little truth sometimes can really mess things up. And, you know, we would go through some challenges or whatever, and I'd say, you know, things like, woman, the Bible say, you know, be careful when you're quoting the Bible to your wife. You know, the Bible said, you're supposed to submit to me, woman. You know, and then she'd say things like, you
actually said that to Debbie?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, but you have to know my wife to know what her response was. Is like, she goes, I don't care what the Bible says. I ain't going to just do that just because you say. And then some time passed, and I was getting irritated because she wasn't doing what I wanted her to do. And I said, well, Lord, you know, your word says she's supposed to submit to me. She's supposed to submit. And the Lord kind of gave me a little jolt, and he said, yeah, I told her that. I didn't tell you that. And he said, that word is for her, not for you to tell her that. That's between me and her. I deal with her. Whether that's true, he goes, and you're supposed to love her as Christ loved the church, and quit worrying about whether or not she submitted or not. That's between me and her.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And so there we went. And so when we kind of found out our places, things began to get just a little bit better. But so he creates man. But then over in Genesis chapter 2, he also recognizes, God, that man needs some help. Did you think that you would need some help?
Oh, absolutely. From the very beginning. So in my Genesis, I knew that I needed help. So thank God for Whoa Man.
Yeah. So God knew you would be in a moment where you'd need help. So he created Jill for you.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And so he knew that you was going to be lonely. You were going to need, just like, you know, we look at Adam and we see the moment of creation, but we're all Adams. I mean, really, he was specifically Adam, but we're all of Adam, and we all have the same attributes of Adam, and we all have that same feeling of something's missing, the companionship, the fact that we have needs, and we also need somebody. You need Lauren?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't not saying that right here, of course. But
good answer, Joey.
But no, I knew, like, from the beginning I would also want someone. There was kind of like a time I thought, no, I'm cool. I'll be alone. I'm like a loner and all that. And then it's like, no, that was short-lived. I need a woman in my life. I need someone to support me and someone who I can support and invest in, kind of both ways.
Yeah. You?
That's a good word. Yeah, when I met Jill, I kind of knew. I'm like, and she jokes about when I proposed. It was before she went to college, and she was going away to college, and I'm like, yeah, I love her, and I want to be. She always jokes and says that the only reason I propose is so she would stay with me while she was during a long distance relationship, and I'm like, no, that might be like a little bit of.
So we also see that women have a severe way to be able to have influence upon men. You know, like my wife has a lot of influence on me. Decisions that I make and, you know, things that I do, and I know it's reciprocal, but she has influence on me. And if you're with the wrong woman, I'm telling you, the influence, you can be influenced to be in the wrong place, wrong time, do the wrong thing, and it can cost you. That's why it's very important for us to make sure that we find the person that we're supposed to be with, and once that we are with that person, recognize just because you have some trials and struggles, it doesn't mean that you just throw it away, because it's easy to do that. And if you throw the right one away, you'll find out, no matter what, it's kind of like the old saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. At least perceptionally, we think that sometimes, and then we get there and we go, yeah, this wasn't no better. And it's kind of the same way. Just because you're having trouble or struggles in a marriage doesn't mean that that person's not worth fighting for and getting it resolved and getting it fixed. Because if you're with the right person, she is going to help you and you're going to be able to help her. And I'm thinking kind of like King Ahab. Y'all remember King Ahab with his infamous wife Jezebel. I suspect she wasn't the right person for Ahab. I don't know what drew him. I haven't gotten to the depth to understand why he chose to be with Jezebel. Maybe she was beautiful. Maybe there was a physical attraction. Maybe, you know, maybe there was just something that was magnetic about her personality. I don't know. But it sure proved that she was not the right person for him to be with. You know, you remember what happened?
She got thrown off a roof or something out of the palace, landed on the ground and was dead, and then the dogs ate her.
That's pretty much.
That was like prophesied that like her bones, she wouldn't even be buried.
I'm not sure. We may have to edit that part, Joey, for the people, you know, getting.
That's Jezebel, right?
Yeah, but you remember also, yes, that was her outcome. Actually, what she said.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
The Bible's pretty old, so I mean, I figured by now.
If you haven't read it by now, then
then we might as well fill you in on the end. Yeah. So there's this one place where, and it's really one of my favorite stories in 1 Kings 21, chapter 21, where King Ahab goes to this guy who has a vineyard, and he wants his vineyard. He goes up and he's like, so would you sell me your vineyard or trade it for something else that I could give you? And the dude says, I can't do that because it's just been in our family, and it's just not, I can't do it. It's committed to our family. We just can't do it. So he gets all tore up and he's sad. And you know the story. He's kind of feeling sorry for himself. And then one day or sometime later, Jezebel comes in and she's like, you know, paraphrasing, baby, what's wrong? Why are you so sad? Why do you look, what's going on? And he, you know, like a little whiny child, says, well, you know, I wanted to buy that vineyard or trade it for something else, and he wouldn't sell it to me. He wouldn't do it. And she's like, baby, don't worry about it. I will get you that vineyard. Now, right now, she has an ability to influence him in a very negative way. See, the right woman in Ahab's life would have said something like, honey, you're the king. And you know what? You're supposed to be an example as a ruler to other people. You don't have to have everything. You've got everything you possibly could want. You got the kingdom. You get the privilege of ruling and ministering and helping people, and you're in the highest position. Quit worrying about things you don't have and start appreciating the things that you do have. But she didn't do that. She wanted to appease him. And it ultimately cost a man his life, and it ultimately cost her life because of her negative influence. That's the kind of thing that we want to avoid as men. We want to have women that, you know, find through our lives, find the women that are going to influence us in the right way. I know my wife influences me in the right way. I know my daughter, I believe she'll influence you in the
Absolutely.
right way. And I don't know Jill like you, but what I do know, I know she influences you in the right way as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She has saved me from disaster many times.
Yeah.
The most recent, I think, I was actually on the phone with you, I was driving, but I had my earbuds in, and there was an older man, and I own a pressure wash business, and I have a trailer that I pull behind. And this guy, I mean, like, I couldn't see the headlights of his car. He was so close. So I just stick my hand out the window, and I, come around past me. And I pulled into the road that leads to my house, and I pull over to let him pass, and he stopped. He gets road rage. And, you heard the whole exchange, and nothing that I had done, and he rolls down his window. And he's like, "What are you trying to say to me?" I'm like, "I just want you to go around. I don't want to talk. I don't want to have a conversation. Just go around." And he, rolls the window back up, peels off, and he calls because our number's on the side of the truck, so I have to be good.
Oh, yeah. When you got your number on the vehicle,
yeah,
it's like you get no pass.
Yeah, you can't be belligerent.
No.
So he calls and he leaves this message. "I can't believe that you claim to be Christians and you're driving all over the road." And I'm like, I start
because you're perfect.
Right, because I'm a Christian. So
You're a Christian, so you can never swerve.
No, you can't.
If you go over that yellow line, you are going to hell.
Oh yeah, there's no grace there. There's no grace. So I start to get in my flesh a little bit. I'll just be honest. And I said, "What's his number?" "You're not calling." "What's his number?" And Jill says, "You're not calling." So I'll dial it out. "Don't you call that number back." And I'm thankful. And it's that type of thing. It's not some big life-defining, life-changing moment, but it's the little things every day.
She influenced you to do the right thing.
That adds up. And it took me back to a friend of mine. We weren't friends at the time. And Reagan, our 12-year-old, bless his heart, he had gotten a steak knife from the kitchen. And he had taken it down to his little friend's house and buried it in their flower garden. Well, this made the other child's mom, it infuriated her, and she sends her husband up to wear me out because we would let our child leave the house with a steak. And keep in mind, he's hidden it from us, and she sent him to wear me out up there. And I answer the door, and I'm like, "Hey man, hey buddy, what are you into? What are you doing up here today?"
Because you have no clue.
Because I didn't have a clue, and he says, "Well, Reagan brought a steak knife to our house," and I'm thinking in my head, typical, but I'm saying, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry that happened," and I'm just tripping on myself because I was genuinely sorry that happened. Because if I had known, I would have obviously stopped him from taking the steak knife to the neighbors. And after we become friends after that. And we had begun to hang out and everything. And he's been in my basement. In my basement, I have a Wing Chun dummy that I practice Wing Chun Kung Fu on. And I have 2 separate punching bags that I practice karate on. And I'm not a big tough guy by any means, but he told me, he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I didn't come up there and wear you out like she wanted me to do." That was a perfect example
of the wrong influence.
Yeah, something that's not life-defining, not life-changing, not some big biblical story, but something that the right spouse at the right moment can influence you in the right way or the wrong way. And we're all going to have bad days.
Sure.
And we're all going to,
do the wrong thing.
Do the wrong thing. But those are 2 instances that I remembered as we were talking about this particular message.
Yeah, and you made me think of a story too, real quick. I share this. Joey, be thinking about a way that you've been influenced, that Lauren has influenced you. I'll come to you in just a minute and I'll give you a little heads up on it.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Just make something up if you.
Yeah. So this is years ago, back in the day, and some of the people can remember Jesse Duplantis, great minister, but back in this quite a few years ago, Jesse was like really in his prime. I mean, there was people driving all kinds of distances to go see him if he wasn't in your area. Now he generally goes over to Christ Temple, I think, annually. But I'd been to Knoxville to see him. I had been to Louisville, and so here me and Debbie and we had a car full of people, and we're on our way, leaving early, so we get to the church in Louisville early enough to get a good seat, because we want to be in service to hear Jesse Duplantis preach. And Jesse's funny, and he just got just one of those vibrant ministries. And so we're excited. We're in the car. We pass through Moorhead, and so we're just on the other side of Moorhead on the interstate. And here's this car that comes up that's behind me. And I'm driving, and I start to ease over to pass somebody else to get in the fast lane, and it dawned on me I didn't look in my rear view, and I didn't put my signal on. I'm human. Okay, so arrest me, right? I mean, what are you going to do? I guess you've never made, as you're sitting there going, well, you should have looked or put your signal on. I guess you've never done anything like that. Come on. So and it was just a hint. It was just a slight. I didn't actually pull out. It was just a nudge. I just went like that, and then I thought, better look in the rearview mirror, and I looked, and on the side mirror, and I saw the car, and so I kind of pulled it back over. Well, I guess he thought I was coming over on him, and as he went by, he gave me the finger. Y'all know what it wasn't this finger either. It was the finger that says it sends a message with it. Well, it infuriated me. I mean, I'm saved. I'm a Christian. I'm in leadership in church. But don't give me the finger, right? Especially for just like easing a little over, And so I'm angry, man. I'm angry. The car passes me. I'm in a big, a big Infiniti SUV, I think at the time, and so this car is like a Mustang or something. He passes me, and then he pulls over and gets back in the lane, pulls back in front of me. And so I didn't say a word. I just kept getting faster and faster to where I got right up on his bumper. I mean, I'm just like, close. And Debbie looks at me and she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean what I'm doing? I'm driving." She goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to get so close to this guy, and then I'm going to dart over, and I'm going to make him get off the road, and we're going to have it out." And she goes, "Oh, that'll make for a great story. Minister on his way to see Jesse Duplantis pulls over somebody on the interstate and gets in a fight. That'll make for a great story." I'm like, "Shut up! Don't do that to me. Don't make sense to me.
Let me have this moment, woman."
Yes, but she refused to relent, and so I finally backed off and said, "Bless you, my son. Bless you, my son. Go in the name of the Lord." What, do you have a story, Joey?
I don't know if I really have a story, but I know one thing that I'm taking away from this for sure is that it seems like, as a wife, what good thing that they can do is, like, instead of feeding into your hunger or your flesh or, anger, it's more of like she helps check you and kind of put you in place. Like, you don't need to pull him over and have a fight, and you don't need to text that guy back and go out on him. For me, I know, like, me and Lauren, we like to have theological discussions every now and then and talking about God and stuff. And one thing where she influences me is, obviously, I can read my Bible more, and I don't read it enough, probably. But so when we're having these theological discussions, I don't necessarily want to have like the upper hand, but I want to make sure I kind of know what I'm talking about. And so she really influences me to like kind of stay in my word. So that way when we're talking, it's like I do know what I'm talking about. I'm not just kind of like, well, I'm pretty sure this is what the Bible says. It's like, no, I do know what the Bible says. And I feel like going forward we can really kind of, make a difference in, our future family.
Yeah.
And that I'm not just like pretending I know what I'm talking about, but I do know according to the Word.
That's great.
You need to get really brushed up because she had an incredible youth pastor growing up. So
yeah. So
that guy, whatever happened to that guy?
I think he's a truck driver now. He sings like
he's in Havana,
outlaw country.
Rusty Shackles.
Yeah.
I will say that she, and you have to watch next week, she had I thought, a incredible revelation.
Oh yeah, that was great.
So you want to hang in and watch next week. You'll see that. But it was great. You didn't get to see it, but it was a great revelation. So let's talk about one last thing, one last section here that I think really, as I was kind of thinking about this, that really stood out to me is the book of Ruth and the story of Ruth. And I thought about Ruth, and I was kind of reading through that just a little bit, and just reminding myself of that story where Ruth marries Naomi's son, and she stays. She's married, and then Naomi's husband dies, the sons die, and so there's the two daughter-in-laws left, and Ruth has a decision to make, and she's a Moabite, and she can either go back to being a Moabite or she can follow Naomi, and Naomi's actually encouraging her, go back where you came from, go back to your people, but she refused to. She was so committed to the family that she became a part of, because she recognized something, obviously, that she recognized that was right, and I believe that she was being led of the Lord. And I think that's super important when it comes to being with a woman. You want somebody that isn't always led by their flesh, isn't always led by just the trendy thing at the moment. We can get involved in those kind of things if we're not careful and pull us in because it's the trendy thing to do. But we have to always remember that the real way that we should be leading families, husbands and wives, we should be hearing from the Lord and being led by the Spirit of God. And so I believe Ruth was led by the Spirit of God to stay with Naomi. So you guys know that story, and you all know the story as well. But just a quick, remembrance of this. So she comes back with Naomi, and then somewhere along the way she meets Boaz, and we won't get into all that and read any of that. But here's the point that I want to mention, and then we'll just talk about this for a minute before we close. So she meets Boaz, ultimately marries Boaz, and then to me, it's like one of the coolest things in the Bible that I think is why I'm so attracted to this story. One of the coolest things about this story is referred to in Matthew chapter 1. I want to read this. So it says here, and this is out of the Amplified Bible, but you'll see it'll say the same thing basically in any other Bible. It says Salmon, the father of Boaz. So that's Boaz who marries Ruth. Salmon is his father, whose mother, Boaz's mother, was Rahab. Now to me, that is like one of the coolest things that I think I've ever seen, is the mother of Boaz, and I think God just has like a cool sense of humor too. The mother of Boaz is Rahab the harlot. How would you like to have for your mother-in-law? Because Boaz marries Ruth, Rahab the harlot. So mom, because a lot of times people say, "Oh, you can call me mom." So Rahab, what? Tell me about your life. Where you come from? What have you been doing up to now? Oh, honey, I was a harlot for years. Yeah, I was a woman of the night.
She says, "I'm okay now, but I'll always be known as a harlot." I feel like, man, we got to remove that, but you can't, because it's such a cool transformation of her life. But watch this. So Ruth marries Boaz, and yet is still connected to somebody that was in a mess before, but made a good decision. Now watch. She's had influence over her son, Boaz. He knows what he's looking for. He's not married up to this point, but there was something in Ruth that he saw that attracted him to Ruth. There was something about her personality that he said, I want her, and I believe what it was, and we could refer to it, but we won't for the sake of time. He said he actually says something like, well, I heard that you had a chance to leave, and you said to Naomi, I'm going to follow you. Wherever you go, I'll go. Whoever your God is my God, and I'll follow your God.
And there was something about that I believe was attractive to him, and he saw, hey, that's the kind of person I want influencing my life. I want a wife like that. And then this story gets even cooler. So they get married, Boaz and Ruth. They have a son named Obed. Interesting. Obed has a son named Jesse, and Jesse has a son named David. So Ruth becomes David's great-grandmother, and then his great-great-grandmother was Rahab. I mean, there's so many things connected to this, because we always look at David, oh, mighty man of God, and he was. But look how the mighty man of David came to be, because of the influence of I would propose, a great woman that recognized, no, I'm not going back to an ungodly nation. I'm going to stay with a nation that I believe is going to serve God, because there's something about Naomi's life that I'm attracted to in the God that she served. I just think that's a cool story.
It is. It's awesome. And you think, oh, King David, oh, it's his lineage is just, but you look and it's like, wow, I mean, this is awesome. I mean, look at how God used these flawed, just like us.
Sure. Just
like the apostles, we're all flawed.
Yeah.
But here we are doing things now that will change our families for generations.
Yeah.
What we do now will absolutely influence for generations.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Jill and I decided when we were married, that we were going to pray over our marriage and pray over our children to break anything that may be generational, that is contrary to what we believe the will of God is.
Yeah.
And break those generational curses that have been and do get handed down from generation to generation.
Yeah. Joey?
Awesome story.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, where Lauren and we're not married yet. We're married. I mean, we have goals, and our goals are, I mean, to have a family that's involved in church and in ministry, and that's completely led by God, and just choosing, because Ruth, she had her mind made up to follow, and that's what, Lauren and we want to have our mind made up. We're going to follow God. We're going to follow His Word, and so, like, we're just going to stay involved that way, and, kind of just whatever ministry might kind of, we might be in Kingsway for a set amount of time, and then if we, have to diverge or kind of go our own way, that's because it's God leading us, and we're not making up our own minds of what we want to do.
I'll say this as we get ready to leave you guys. We started this out with watching or looking at a marriage through the perspective of the husband, the male's lens, because he is the leader of the house. Okay, he has to make decisions, and yes, I told the story about telling Debbie, hey, you're supposed to submit to me. You should never have to tell anyone that. You should just be the leader. You lead, and then when you love your wife as Christ loves the church, per Lauren's revelation, and again, watch that next week, they'll want to follow you. When you're leading properly, they will want to follow you. And so, maybe it takes time, because it took me some time. When me and Debbie first started to go to church, I just share this story real quick. We've been married for a little while. We struggled in our marriage at first, and then I got saved at my home, and I said, we got to start going to church. And I'd heard really 3 words to share this testimony before. I heard 3 words, but I didn't really know anything about them. But I always heard Brother Hagin, Brother Copeland, and Rhema. I heard those things that was in my mom's vocabulary, but I didn't really know anything about them. But I knew that Rhema was at least like a Bible school. And so I said, we need to go to church. And Debbie said, well, where are we going to go? because she was kind of her last church had been from a Baptist church. And I was like, no offense to Baptist people, we love you all. And it wasn't anything like that, but there was just something about Brother Hagin and Brother Copeland being more of the charismatic or Pentecostal persuasion type things that I had kind of become used to knowing what little bit I knew. But so I look in the telephone book, which is now obsolete.
You want to explain
what a telephone book is?
Did you call using like was it the rotary?
Well,
is that back when there was like sundials?
That was not very nice, and that was definitely not very nice of you.
There weren't even flip phones. It was
no way.
It was a house phone. And landline. And so I find in the phone book where all the numbers of businesses, churches, and people where you could find if you knew their name. So I go through the church section in the yellow pages, and I'm looking down through churches, and I'm just reading, looking at them. And I come to one that says, Rhema Church. I was like, right there it is. There it is. That's the one. And I looked, and it was like literally a quarter of a mile from my house. And I'm like, even more perfect. I can almost walk. It's great. I can sleep late, get there just right at the last, had it all figured out in my mind. And so we go, and I asked Debbie if she would go. She says, sure, she'll go. So we go, and then at the end of the service, she goes, I don't like that church. I said, well, why don't you like that church? And she said, the songs that they sing, they're just like chants. It's not really a song. Where's the hymnals at? Because they had no hymnals. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I said, you understand, God didn't write those hymnals. It ain't like the Bible. Yes, I'm sure he inspired people to write songs. Some of them I'm not so sure about. But a lot of them, sure, God led. But I said, he's still leading. He can still write songs today. That he didn't. I don't see anywhere it says, thus saith the Lord. Songs are only for the, approved hymnal. But she just didn't really understand that. She didn't really want to go, and she quit going. And she said, I'm going to go to this church, and you can go wherever you want to go. Well, that irritated me. And as a man, because a man, after all, there's something in you that says, bless God, I'm a man. You understand? You're a woman, and I love you, and I know I ain't saying that you can't, you ain't got a heart and think and all that. Of course you do. And I appreciate your thoughts and inputs, and I value that, all that. But there's still something in you that says, but I'm a man. Men kind of lead their families. And so I wanted to say, bless God, like a caveman or something like, you going with me. Bound with some old head, drag him and say, here's my woman.
Tim Allen type of thing.
Well, it didn't work out like that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, imagine that. So she says, now watch this. She goes, you go where you want to go, and I'll go where I want to go. And at that time we had the girls, they were little. And I said, okay, all right. But the girls are going with me. And she goes, okay. I didn't know how, afterwards I was thinking maybe that wasn't such a great idea because, she'd get them ready, but I had to pack them in, they're babies. Pack them in, little and carrying them, and it was tough. Mm-hmm. And so I'd go to church, and she'd go to church, and we'd come back, and she'd go, we had an awesome service. It was awesome today. Pastor so-and-so, he was on fire. And then I'd say, we had an awesome service too. The Holy Ghost fell. People were just being ministered to. Healings taking place. It was awesome. We were like competing. And so the Lord had to check me on that and say, so do you think that's the way you win her? I'm like, why do you have to be right all the time? So little bit by little bit, I just quit talking about it. I just go, and she'd get the girls ready. I'd say, thank you, honey. I appreciate that. All right, I'll see you. Hope you guys have a great service. I'll see you afterwards. Okay, you too. Week after week, this went by for several months. Finally, one morning, she's getting ready. The girls are ready. I'm ready to go. And I said, all right, well, listen, I'll see you after service. And she goes, well, hang on just a minute. I went, okay. She goes, hang on, I'll just go with you this morning. And on the inside, I just have to make this admission, but on the inside I was going, it's about time. my God, what in the world's been wrong with you up to this point? It's about time I wanted to say that. But the Lord, in his infinite wisdom, said, don't do that.
That's good that he said that.
He said, just embrace that I've been dealing with her. And so she said, I'll go with you. And she went with me, and we've been together ever since. And so the point that I wanted to make in all of that was this. We as men try to fix things ourselves sometimes, and we just have to be patient and let God work on the situations in our families with our wives. And frankly, the last thing is, he tells us that we're supposed to love our wives as Christ loved the church, and if we would do that, I mean, how much did Christ, I mean, really, how do you define how did Christ love the church? What did he do for the church?
Gave his life.
Yeah.
He
gave everything.
He died for his church. So that basically is saying, I don't necessarily know that you ever get tested on that, but potentially, I guess. But at a minimum, figuratively, you should be willing to die for your wife. And if you have that attitude that you'd be willing to die for your wife, then you are at least on your part, you're in the right place where you need to be, and let God deal with her on the other things, and I believe it'll all work out.
Yeah, and that's such an important verse, because that is a direct, it's an action, right? Mm-hmm. Love your wife as I love the church. It's not a feeling. And it reminds me, and I'll go somewhere with this, it reminds me of the movie Top Gun. You guys remember Top Gun?
I do.
And you remember when Maverick and Goose and all the guys were in the bar, and he's trying to pick up his future girlfriend. And what's the song? You remember the song? You've lost that loving feeling. Remember that?
Oh yeah, Righteous Brothers.
Yeah, and he's singing that, and
I'm 55.
And she acts like it doesn't affect her at all. It's she, he's not going to win her with that. He's a horrible singer and all that, and it works, And I was thinking about that the other day, and you brought up that verse. That's a command. That's not about a feeling. Right. And DC Talk, you remember DC Talk? Toby Mac's old band from the 90s, and they had this song. And they said, "Love is a verb." And people nowadays, they want to say, well, I want to get divorced. I want to get separated from my spouse because I don't have those feelings anymore. Now you may think that, and you may want to make that legitimate and make that a legitimate reason, but that's a horrible reason.
Yeah. Because
love the feeling will come directly from love the verb. Mm-hmm. And when you are purposely loving your spouse, those feelings will come about.
Yes.
And you will feel those feelings. So if you've lost that loving feeling, I would challenge you to start to serve your spouse.
Yes.
Serve them and do what Christ has called us to do, and love that spouse.
Amen. Like he loves the church. Yeah. That's a great word. Joey, you want to close us out with prayer? You got any last thoughts you want to
add? One thing I think back to is like when you talk about love the verb as an action. I know one thing, and thinking back to when Pastor Jay was here, it was on a Wednesday night, and which should have been a Sunday sermon because it was such an awesome word.
I agree.
And there was this one little thing he talked about, and it was the like the 2-minute rule or whatever. And it's like right when you get off work and you come home and like you see the wife and the kids or whatever, which I'm not wife and kids yet, but you can kind of determine the next 4 hours of the day. If in that 2 minutes you're kind of mopey and sad and you just kind of bring everybody down, or you can choose with action to be loving and be like, how was your day? Just be optimistic, be happy. And then, because like I know with Lauren, I've done that before, and I'll just kind of be depressing and sad, and then she gets kind of depressed and sad. So you gotta, you have to just choose to just be happy and to kind of bring it up. That way you're not like, de-escalating, any of the situations. But, I guess I'll go and close it out in prayer.
Yeah. I'll say one last thing. By the way, nice haircut.
Thank you, sir.
It does look good.
My fiance did it. Saved me $20.
Oh,
Amen.
We heard all about it, and that's why you want to watch next Wednesday as well. Joey's haircut. Lead us with prayer.
All right, Lord, we love you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for who you are. And I just pray that anyone who's kind of watched this through Facebook Live, if they're kind of in a struggling situation with their marriage, that they can watch this and that they can draw something from it, and that they can draw from the scriptures, and that lives can be changed through this. And we love you. Thank you. Pray for kind of the country as a whole with all that. Pray that passes and that we can get back in church with one another. We love you. Thank you for this week. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. God bless you. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to being back with you real soon. We're excited to be back in church with you. I believe it's just around the corner. So hang on. Hang tight. We'll be back. Love you guys.